Hey, ho, good neighbors. What's going on? It's Phil Russert. So today I wanted to do a couple things. I mean, obviously, I want to let you know about tonight's live stream, but I don't know. I've been talking to some people I know in the indie community. They're all, doing their own thing, creatives and stuff. And a lot of different things are circling around about the current climate of comics, especially indie comics and Kickstarters and all these things. So I thought it'd be interesting to come on live and talk with someone who's experiencing things as well in an objective way about the indie comic scene mostly, but comics overall, the things that are helping it, the things that are hurting it, the things that maybe what can make it better. So we want this to be not a negative thing, even though we will discuss things we think may be adversely affecting the industry. Again, this is going to be all hopefully objective, posing questions, etc., but with some subjective opinion. Be clear, we are not here to bash any genre. We are not here to bash any creators, any specific creators at all. We appreciate everybody who's hustling and doing what they can, but we do want to address the things that might be adversely affecting the industry right now, or really just what is working, what's helping. Hey, Izzy, what's going on? I do have a guest, but if you want to come on, I can drop you a link because we want to talk about this. There's a lot of creators working hard and struggling right now, and then there are some that are very successful and it's working great for them, and that's great. But what is going on right now and what can change? That's the question, and we want to talk about those things. So okay, Izzy, I'll send it. But one of my guests, Izzy is going to come on as my guest, but my initial guest that I have on right now is also a fellow creator who runs his own company with his wife, and they have a brand new baby who's going to be with us actually, Bowie, and we're going to talk with him and his thoughts and things of that nature. So from Flash Delirium LLC, and writer and co-creator of Rabbit's Badass Song, which to me is honestly an indie book that I don't know why it's not getting more attention. This book should be on shelves in stores every month and getting a lot of love from readers. And we'll talk about that too. Um, Without further ado, he's on Facebook as Elston Christopher, but his name is Christopher Elston from Flash Delirium. Hey,
Yes. What's going on, Phil?
and we've got beautiful, beautiful 1 month old little Bowie who looks like he's resting now.
Yeah.
Congratulations to you and Chastity, and God
Thank you.
bless.
Appreciate it, man.
Um, so, Christopher and I, we put out our own books, and we have other things in the works. Christopher goes into film as well, and other things that I don't venture into, which is great because it just shows you the spectrum of indie creators. Um, and but right now, specifically speaking about comic book creation and content and Kickstarters and crowdfunding and things like that, we want to go into things. But first, we're also being joined by Izzy from Izzyverse. Izzy has his own YouTube channel, and everybody's going to get to plug their stuff. Um, but without further ado, Izzy, who I just saw all weekend at Baltimore. What's up, boss? No volume, buddy. We don't hear
I
you.
can hear him.
All right, he's going to fix his volume. So, Christopher and I talk often. And yes, there is some frustration. We're being honest, but please know that this is not meant to be a venting session or to down or put down anybody else. It's just talking about the issues in the industry that we see, that we hope rectify or change.
Hello, hello, hello.
We got you.
You got me? Okay, there we
Hey,
go.
buddy.
Turn
What's
down a
up,
little bit.
Flash? What's up? How you doing, man?
Turn down a little bit. You're really loud.
Give me a second here. It was like one of those last minute things, right?
No problem. Yeah, you're really loud.
I know why. How about now?
Yeah,
Better?
you're good. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
What's
So
going on,
welcome,
guys?
Izzy. Welcome, Christopher.
I could jump in and jump off at any given time since I'm paying attention to work too, since technically I am on the clock. But shh,
No
don't tell
problem.
them.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, you're live. So.
Well, they're
Well,
not going to see me on Phil's show right now. I can tell you that much.
yeah, that's true. Nobody is apparently. We keep losing people. So this is meant to be a productive conversation about things that maybe aren't going well in the industry right now, things that could go well, and we want to not just. This isn't a complaint fest. We want to talk about, well, what can we do about it? Now, we'll start with crowdfunding of comic books. I have always said Kickstarter is not a sustainable avenue for people who want to grow their content, um, unless you were already a big name who had distribution, like Brian Polito and Billy Tucci, et cetera. And that's, this is again expressing opinions that these are my opinions. Nobody, I'm not speaking for anybody else on the panel, and I don't have any data collected to back this up. So it is conjecture based on what I've witnessed. So please keep that in mind. I don't have any research or data to back this. It's all my observations. It's just an opinion, and I am not here to badmouth anybody. But I always felt that distribution is really the only way to get out there. Kickstarters and crowdfundings and Indiegogos are limited, and we're going to touch on several topics today. There's tribalism. What is crowdfunding really meant for? What is its potential? How far can it take you? Quality control in the indie community. Like, unfortunately, there are some books that the artwork maybe isn't up to professional standard. Maybe the writing is not up to, because you know what? It's great that people are pursuing their dreams, and anybody can pursue their dreams now with Kickstarter, which is a wonderful thing. And I'm not saying these people should not do this. Do what your heart tells you. But how does that affect the indie community if a lot of books are not at professional level? And how does that affect the reputation of the indie community? We'll start there.
Go ahead, Flash, man. You started it off. you're the actual guest.
Well,
You are too.
You know what I mean.
well,
I'll be sharing out.
it's a couple things. I think the first thing, like you said, what is crowdfunding? And I've always said crowdfunding was never meant, in my opinion, to be an online store.
Right.
It's the original reasons for these things was to help people who maybe needed. They're trying to get their arts. We'll just say art because they could be in comic books, film, books, whatever, off the ground. So that was a good way to kind of see, to reach out to people who may like that genre, and and the incentive for them, instead of just donating money like the GoFundMe's, they would get a piece of the artwork in return, which I thought was a great way to kind of, because it's called Kickstarter. If you made a certain amount of money off of that, you should be able to, it should be enough to kind of like pull away from crowdfunding if you can. I'm talking about people who are making like $40,000, $50,000 off these things.
What is the percentage of people that really do that? And the ones that do seem to be doing content books of like TNA that aren't going to get distribution. They're not going to go into comic stores. It's going to be strictly using Kickstarter as that online store, like you're talking about, right?
Right. And I think that's the mistake because, at that point, and this goes into something else too, is like who is actually backing these things? Because clearly, if the book is doing very well, it's pretty much more just for art's sake. It's not really being read. It's just being collected. And are we even talking about these books anymore? And I think we have to get to a point where we can sustain without the crowdfunding. Because I think crowdfunding is great to get it going, but you can't build a business plan around crowdfunding because now you're gonna be stuck in this hole. Now there are exceptions. If you're already an established name, like a celebrity artist, that's totally different. Because at that point, the art, it's almost like they're reaching out directly to their fans. They have a built-in fan base. They didn't come to the platform to create a fan base. They're bringing it with them. Right. Well, a lot of these other guys, they're kind of using that platform to kind of create what they think they're creating fans. Because I always felt that a following and a fan is two different things. You can have like a YouTube channel, have like 50 million followers, but does that necessarily translate into actual fans of the material, or are they just invested in you?
And that's part of like there are multifaceted things going on here. You touched on a few things. I do want to go back to my initial question though, and then but we'll address this first since you brought it up. You're right about one thing that I think is absolutely important. how many of the backers are friends just supporting? How many are just collecting covers, whether it's a teen book or just a nice piece of art from a Tyler Kirkham or a big name, but they're not reading the content, right? How many people are getting a digital PDF and they're not even reading it? It's going in their email and it's just disappearing. Um, which leads to the people that love the books that have read it, how many of them are really buzzing about it, talking about it, right? Like you said, because you read the new Batman storyline, it's getting a lot of press, right? It's in comic book reviews and Bleeding Cool, and it's all over the place, and the community buzzes about whatever the thing is in Batman. But when you're use Rabbit's Badass Song, which in my opinion is an exceptional book,
Oh, thanks.
it is professional level. It is a great read, and I rave about it all the time. But yeah, the fans that do read and love it aren't buzzing about it. There is no um, word of mouth campaign, right?
Mhm.
Um, so how do we get around that? How do we circumvent the fact that it's all on us to promote, but Kickstarter is Kickstarter. It's to kickstart your project. It was never meant to be distribution, you know. And I think
Yeah.
we saw people like Ethan Van Sciver, Billy Tucci, Brian Polito, all these big names that, like you said, they made their name prior through distribution and big comics. Um, and I think it's kind of like the kid who thinks he could be the next LeBron James. Well, it doesn't work that way, So, what are your
Mm.
thoughts, Izzy?
So my thoughts are being the guy that was on Kickstarter when it first was launched in the early 2000s. If you go back, there's a campaign that we did when I was part of Pronto, and it's a really poorly quality video. Trust me, it's hilarious. If you ever go back and look at it, but something's coming through the door right now. It's so funny how it is. But I think what's happening in the worlds of Kickstarters, Indiegogos, you name it, all different types of crowdfunding, is that it became a different type of platform within time. The
Right,
original intent was exactly that, to kickstart a project. The goal was to get the money that you probably wouldn't have been able to get, so that you could fund the project that you want to fund that you probably wouldn't have been able to do beforehand, right?
right,
So for example, for myself, when I started with my Pronto Comics team, our goal was to get money from not just family and friends, but other people within the comic book community outside of my local chain, right? So like, since being from New York, pretty much I will be able to get people from New York together, right? But can I get someone from, where Flash is located, right? Someone from Florida, someone from Seattle that might be interested in our work. That was the original intention. And then somehow you did get other creators, who established creators for that matter, established creators that jumped on board. And it's not just we talk about comics, but it's not just comics, right? It's music, it's movies, it's
board games, everything. Yeah,
anything and everything. So what ended up happening is, ended up, the pool became more like an ocean, where
right.
the right. So it's like, it's I love it. I love seeing Flash being a dad. I love it. Right. It became an ocean, and even though there's more fish in the ocean, it's still harder to get. Now there's a lot. So in order for your name to get out, you still have to do that marketing that you probably didn't
You
have
would
to do
you,
earlier.
you would have to do that with distribution anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
But the problem is with distribution, you're hitting a wide audience. Based on obviously how the comic stores, retailers want to buy through previews, but
Mhm.
you're able to hit a larger audience in one shot. Whereas Kickstarter, you're doing this ground floor campaigning. I mean campaigning, and um, you know when you're not you when you weren't established as a big name and you're starting from scratch, you're relying on social media a lot because you don't have the money to throw into paid marketing.
Mhm.
Obviously, we're not getting billboards, we're not getting radio spots. So, and plus, it's really hard to quantify what that return is on that.
Mhm.
But you do get a mailing list. But again, when you have that ocean and there's so many people on Kickstarter now with comics, etc. Everyone's getting inundated with emails. Just because the email is being sent doesn't mean it's being looked at. They might be just clicking and erasing. I mean, people scroll through Facebook and they like everything, but did they really read it? Did they pay attention to it? They don't, because we're just saturated and inundated with so much content from all different areas that I think the human mind just overwhelms and focuses on the few things that they really want to focus on. And that's why no matter how many people you can get 300 people to like one of my posts, but only 20 of them backed, right? Or,
Right.
and then that's not even getting into the algorithms. We'll get into later.
Yeah.
But do you think, getting back to my original question, because there's so much to touch, how do you think it adversely affects the indie community, those who are trying to establish a real presence of a story, a comic book? We want to get it out there, we want our characters or our stories to be something that really has been grounded in part of fiction that people can enjoy and talk about, like Elston Christopher said. Does it hurt us, the fact that anybody can go on Kickstarter now, even with, and I don't mean to be cruel, but not professional level quality? I mean, and I'm not saying mine is, I'm not saying mine isn't, because there's people that can look at my book and say, well, I don't think you're professional. So this is, that's subjective. But you've all seen those campaigns where,
Of course,
you've seen the art is just, unfortunately, it's not up to standard, or the writing is not professional. I encourage people to pursue their dreams, everyone. But there are a lot of people, because of this platform now, you don't have to be knowledgeable of the business. You don't have to have a lot of money to put into, to put, quality control out there.
mm-hmm.
How does that affect the perception of the indie community?
Well,
and
that's the
people
point.
that are in there?
That's the point, right? So when you are allowed, when you have an ocean of talent, some of that talent really isn't as good as it is. They can't swim the ocean, right? They're not going to be able to swim the ocean, and sooner or later they'll identify. But do you limit that ability? Do
I
you
would
say,
never do that. No.
right? So do you say, if you were Kickstarted, do you say, well, you know what? Yeah, I get it, but no, you're not as good, because then you become the next Marvel DC
No,
who
yeah,
reject,
I would
right?
never condone that. That's, no. But how does that adversely affect those in the industry trying to, the perception of indie comics overall?
Um.
It,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Go ahead.
No, go. But what I say is that there's those who are really really good, and there's those that are really really bad. The ones that are really really bad, sooner or later, what's gonna happen is that they're not gonna get that promotion value, but they're gonna put into the business, right? It's like that YouTuber, right? We use YouTube all the time, right? We all use YouTube. You're part of it, Phil. I'm part of it. We work really hard to get that subscriber base. Like
Right.
we're going crazy trying to do it, and we both know that not everybody's watching. People are subscribing, but they're not watching, and
Right.
and what's happening there is pretty much the same thing. When you get to that point where you actually need them to watch, then you're suffering as a result of that, and now you're working even more harder than before to get what you need.
Right.
So with something like crowdfunding, the Kickstarters, the Indiegogos, the whatever you want to call it, there is a matter of, are you truly ready for this?
Right.
One of the things that it's different from crowdfunding, of course, but you have whatnot, right? Whatnot allows anyone to sell, but you have to go through a series
And
of
that's the thing.
stuff to get there.
Whatnot is blown up so big now that there's so much competition there. It's rough.
It's the same. Yeah, it becomes similar in that way, but you have to still go through a training. You got to sit down, and Kickstarter doesn't have that all the time, as long as I remembered.
And I do want to touch on, Russ has made a few comments, and Russ does a lot of Kickstarters, so he does share some valuable information. And then I'm going to get to his last statement, which I want to touch on too, which is absolutely true. So the question I had posed, we were talking about earlier, was about the readers versus collectors, right? How many are reading, or how many just want a really nice cover from a big artist, or they want a cover because it's a booby book, right? So, Russ, by the way, hi, Ryan. I'm sorry I didn't get to you. How are you, buddy? Ryan has a great
Hey,
show. Drop
Russ.
your link.
Hey Russ, what's going
So
on, man?
Russ does do a lot of analytics, right? So he does have some numbers, and he said roughly 65% of CF backers are collectors. They might read a bit, but they buy more than one cover when they back. Doing well on Kickstarter means you're building a following and doing great covers. Um, which is true, but what does that do to people who are trying to get you to read the content, not collect it, right? So that's those are two different backers, right? And two different goals. And then my other question was about the perception of indie comics as a whole by the world or the industry or the fans for the subpar quality. And he says it doesn't affect it. Those projects will just fail. And he said that 34% of comic related Kickstarters have failed, which goes into another topic we haven't talked about yet. It's just this domino effect. There's so many things to talk about. It's hard to keep on track, but
Yeah.
Kickstarter could be doing things to help backers find projects. And that's the thing, they can. But like Facebook, their algorithms are not really productively helping. To be honest with you, I don't see the sense in the projects we love from Kickstarter. It did nothing for me. It did nothing for me. And I'm seeing projects get it, and we don't even know why. How are we quantifying that, and what is it doing? Is it supposed to be bumping them up in the Kickstarter algorithm where you see the campaign? And if so, is that really helping? Because there's so many projects, you get buried and inundated. I see are they only looking to, if the guys who are already doing well, if Kickstarter is looking to just make them do even more, and Kickstarter is not even trying to help the little guys that are doing 2,000-3,000 to get them to 10,000, 12,000, what is the benefit of that platform for the guy that's trying to build a following?
I did want to add something, Phil, to what we said. Kind of going back to your original question. I think there's still hope or a possibility for people who just want to tell good stories, right? But I think, like Izzy said it best. Like, Kickstarter has changed a lot, and I hate to say this word, but it seems like now, and this is Indiegogo too, all that stuff. The process to make it work is very formulaic now. Like,
Right.
there is a formula to how to get successful campaigns. There are certain books we know to do well no matter what. I mean, you've seen them all the time. And is that a fan base? It's not really a fan base, I don't think. It's just you're hitting a demographic at that point, and I think, like I said, collectors. A collector will collect books, because whatever reason. Either there's a hot artist on it, or expecting that one day that one issue one could become the next Walking Dead or whatever and stuff, and there's just not enough talk about these books. So like the guy that's really trying to push his story, he may not have that flashy cover or that or that buzz behind his book, right, like the other guys do. Back in the day, back in the 90s, people who made independent comics had to come out of pocket. There was no crowdfunding campaign, so the pool was very small. Right. Now with Kickstarter, anybody can do this. Anybody, and there's a lot of books out there that are fan fiction. They're really just fan fiction books, which shows people are just, trying to, they're just wanting to put something out. It's not so much they want to make a career out of comics, but look what I made a comic and that's it. So now we got a lot more people doing this stuff. I mean, you look every day, there's like 10, 20, 30 campaigns going on.
Yeah. And again, we go back to how inundated people are getting with all these campaigns. There's so much solicitation. Because look, we have to market. We don't want to annoy anybody, but no one's going to put us out there. We're not getting Bleeding Cool interviews. We're not getting Netflix deals. We're not on billboards, or there's no fan art for tragedy all over a comic convention. So yeah, we have to push and we have to get out there, and we use MailChimp for or we use Kickstarter to get our mailing lists. But think about it. I gotta get about at least 20 Kickstarter emails a day. Now, I do look at all of them because I know what it feels like to be on this end, and when you don't, well, most people don't. It's just too much, and it's not a knock on those people. It's just too much, and
it's oversaturation. That's what it begins.
Yeah. Yes. So what do you do? I mean,
and that's
up to be honest, that's up to Kickstarter. So no matter what we do, It's Kickstarter's decision whether
But
it's
does
going to
Kickstarter
continue.
even care? They're there to make a profit.
I think they did at one time. I think, like all businesses, there was a sign of caring, and then what ended up becoming is,
They became a conglomerate. They became
yeah, that's exactly the word I was going to use. It became a conglomerate where is this really doing what it is, or should I just grab everyone's money pretty much to do something, right? Because of course they get a percentage, they get
Yeah,
their
because
share.
there's some things, little things they could tweak to make better that Russ has mentioned to them, I have mentioned, and it goes unaddressed. They don't, they don't look to make those moves.
Mhm. Well,
Because
here's the point. I'm sorry to cut you off there,
no, go
but
ahead, go ahead.
here's what I'll say. I'm going back to the whole YouTube of it all model, right? So with YouTube, and before they started these new campaigns with handles, but which I think are very good, you had to get 500 subscribers just to be part of a YouTube community to send out messages.
Right.
You have to get 1,000 subscribers plus 4,000 hours just to get monetized. So there are avenues. There's like goals that are being set through the YouTube model, and there's also those types of services to help you to get there, right? That they're also doing things in a way that it's affordable for that individual. For example, one of the tools I use to help out my YouTube channel is a tool that's called YouTube Buddy. Really good tool. It helps you out with tags and all that fun stuff. But what they do is if you have under 1,000 subscribers, they're not going to charge you the same rate as they would if you did. So they do things like that. I think what Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and all these companies like that could do, if they're listening, if they find the time to listen, is to say, hey, who is the smaller group that we need to address? Who are the new guys? Who are the guys who are doing good things, but at the same time,
here's the problem. Think about this too. It's the same with publishers or anything going on. It's an investment on their part, right? So they want a built-in investment, a win. They want a guaranteed win, right?
Yeah, of course.
Which you understand on the business model side. Yeah, we want a guaranteed win. That's how we make money. We don't want to lose. Nobody's here to lose money. But if you want a guaranteed win, then what do I need out of you? What am I getting out of you? What do I need you for?
Well, that's
right?
the point. But that's the point.
Is,
they want you to win too because that makes them win. That makes you do a second.
What I'm saying is like publishers, Kickstarter, these companies, they're not trying to help you become a winner. They want you to come in as a winner already so they get their money. So if they're not providing any assistance, hey, Bowie.
I had a request to hold them up for a minute, so I'm holding them up.
You had a question?
Again, if what do I need from you, then what am I going to get from you? Like even a publisher, if you're like, well, you have to come with a built-in fan base. Well, then why do I need you? I need you to help me get that fan base. So if you're going to do all the marketing yourself and all the pushing yourself, if like Russ says, Kickstarter could do Netflix genre things, which would help a lot because then people who are into horror would see your book, and it also
that's a good idea.
That is good.
What it does is it makes us several smaller ponds instead of this large ocean, so I will stand out more in that genre. And that's a simple thing, like Russ said they could do, but they won't do it, and that could help make a lot more people winners.
But that's good. Go ahead, Flash. You first.
I think another problem now is going back to the Kickstarter model is when this thing first started out, and you know what this is, I feel it was more genuine, more honest. It was really just about creators trying to get their projects done. I think once we got to the point where people started giving classes on how to do Kickstarters, I think that was a bad idea. Because now it's like you're putting just much as work into this Kickstarter as you are creating your product. When I don't think that was the original intention of the thing, right?
Well, but at the same time, I think, and I agree to that, but I think there is some benefits in doing that, right? Because like what Phil was saying earlier, it's like we pretty much anybody could really make a Kickstarter project, and those that are really talented will strive, while those that are not so talented or even not even talented,
that's not necessarily a guaranteed thing either, though. Because
but what I was gonna say is, I think the problem lied when the professional creators, and I'm talking about the guys that were established creators, mainstream creators, right? Those guys that were in Marvel, that were in DC, that made a name for themselves. And again, I'm not here knocking any individual. I think they're all great talents, right? Because we read their books, right? We know they're good talents. But the problem I have is when Izzy Verse is trying to make a book, and his competition is, I don't know, I'm just going to just throw a name out, Donnie Katz and Ryan Stegman on Kickstarter. And again, those are two guys I don't think they do have anything on Kickstarter. That's why I'm throwing their names out. But who are you? If you are a reader and you know Donnie Katz's writings and you love his writings, but you don't know Izzy Verse, who are you going to pick?
Right.
That is true.
That's a problem. So you have this situation, and I think genres are great. Genres don't fix that problem. It just puts them into different genres.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with the genre thing, but what I do know is there are pros and cons to those big names, right? Because yes, you're right. They're going to pick Polito over me, but Polito is bringing more people to Kickstarter to make comic books an avenue that people feel they can go to there. Like Russ brings up again how 64% of comics are 64% funded. It's the highest category that gets funded. But of that 64%, my question is, how many are readers? How many are collectors? Because me, as someone who's trying to get people to read the book, not like, and this is not a complaint, it's a factual statement. And by the way, hi Nita, how are you? A booby book with bad art will make 15 grand. A booby book that nobody's reading the story, doesn't give two craps about it, is making 33 grand, 40 grand, 50 grand, right? A book, and I won't name any books because I don't want to, like target anybody, that is such a great read, but doesn't have big names or doesn't have boobs on it, is struggling to make 3 grand. So how do we fix that? I don't begrudge the people with the booby books or anything of that. That's not what the statement is about. You get yours. If you can do it, do it. But they're tapping into that fan base that is a collector. So good for them. They got their demographic. They targeted that demographic. That's smart business. That's how you make money. How do you target readers on Kickstarter when you're a nobody that they don't trust? They don't know how, if you're a good writer or not. I mean, how do you get that demographic?
Well, I'll say this, and I hope this doesn't sound negative. Kickstarter might not be the way to go with that book that does smaller numbers. You might have to, because again, prime example, I'll use my book, for example, Rabbit. When we did Rabbit, the first 2 issues, that was all out of pocket, okay? I technically made more money selling on my website than I did on a Kickstarter. We did the Kickstarter because obviously, the book wasn't in enough stores. I wasn't pulling enough money to actually produce the book out of pocket again, which we knew. But the Kickstarter was kind of see if I could bring in a couple more people and just at least, get enough funding in to produce the next book, which we kind of did. But I know the audience, and with the few stores we are in, the book does very well. And I think that goes back. A Kickstarter audience is not necessarily a comic book store audience. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's why I've always said that I don't think Kickstarter is a sustainable platform for that type of creator. I think we need distribution for the indie world, for the guys that can't get with SourcePoint Press or the smaller companies or the bigger companies, Image, etc. So I agree with that. But then there's other questions, and it, looking at, I don't know who the Facebook user is. I apologize. It just says Facebook user. There are around 800 people in that 64% who seek out those booby books on the regular. Next step would be horror, followed by fantasy, followed by supers. Now there's another question. Superheroes were what comics were all about, right? People have gotten kind of tired of superheroes. Now, I don't know if the movies had something to do with that or just the fact that after how many years, how many times, how much can you really do that's new and fresh with superheroes, right?
There's that, I think.
So, yeah. So are people tired of superhero books or tired of what superhero books have been? Oh, it's Nita. Hi, I'm sorry. It just comes up as Facebook user here. Yeah. That's StreamYard. Is it that they just want something fresh and new with superheroes, or they're tired of superheroes? Because, I get the back and forth from people, why do I keep getting these idiots on here?
I saw it. Oh boy.
Yeah, they've been popping up on every show I do. They pop up.
Am I missing something?
And it's still popping up. I see it.
Yeah, I hear a
So
lot using.
as we talk about that, you mentioned movies. That's what it was. Uh,
Hey, but
so yes, I think the superhero genre is reached. Would I say it's reached its peak to a certain extent? I think superheroes comics are going to be around for a long time, but the thing is, where's the originality in the superhero comic? We've pretty much did everything that you could do. Every story has been made. You know, every type of superhero comic book story has been decided, has been, arranged, whether it's a superhero in the real world and superhero in the non-real world, a dark superhero, a light-hearted superhero, beloved, I hate it. All that has been done, and it's been beaten up to the point that if you are a creator like myself, I love my superhero books. That's the majority of my collection, superhero books, right? But I know it's gone to that point that I've pretty much read everything there needs to be read, every different style that needs to be read, everything that needs to go with it. And now a new person's coming in and says, hey, I'm going to give you a different type of superhero book, right? Or different genres that have been beaten up. I think the horror genre is going to get beaten up again because there's a lot. I think, as crazy as it sounds, I've been seeing a lot of wrestling books happening
oh yeah,
because,
I see that
right?
too.
Yeah.
And then and I talked to a good guy, and he's like, yeah, my book is different. It's like, is it? You know what I mean? Is it? So what is it that you want to be able to do? What are the things that they said with when it comes to the movies? Like when they come to the movies and they ask the directors to do something, they tell them, hey, it may be a Batman movie, but give me a story first, and then we'll make sure it's a superhero story afterwards. What's happening is people making the superhero story think it's a superhero story instead of just working on building a story, a good
Right.
story. So there's some problems in that, and with Kickstarter, again, it's oversaturated. I think that's the biggest problem. Period.
You know,
There's
Russ brings up a good point real quick. I'm sorry, Christopher. It's hard for creators to understand that comic creators may not like what they're making. It's true. Every creator thinks their book is great, but I don't think it's that cut and dry because those are the books that are going to fall off, like you said, Russ. The problem is there are a lot of good books like Christopher's that are great reads that I think people really will enjoy, but you've got to reach a mass audience because we're selling trust, right? You said before, Donny Cates, Scott Snyder. Scott Snyder, a lot of people felt that he didn't write well for his Justice League run, right? But they still trusted him with Nocturne because of his history, his resume. He had a history. Well, how do you build that history as a writer to get people's trust when, going back to Christopher's first point, no one's talking about these books that they like? Like, I read Rabbit's Baddest Song and I really enjoy it. And I'm telling everybody all the time, this is a book you should check out. It's a quality read. It's great. It's professional and it's interesting. But if no one is doing that, how do the books that are actually good and entertaining getting out there? Like I'm not saying this as a look at me how great I am, but three major Marvel DC writers told me my book is written very well, and a lot of people have said they love my book, but I'm limited in the audience I'm reaching. I'll fund in 2 hours because I've got that 150 people that absolutely love the book. They're always there on cue, and they come in the first hour, 2 hours because they absolutely want to have it. But how do you get past that where it's now 3,000 people, 5,000 people? Because sometimes the book is good. It's just buried in a sea of other books, or it just can't get out there.
I got something to add to that, and I thought about this a lot. Is some things take time. Some things, it may not work now, but 5 years from now, it may blow up. There's a lot of things you see all the time. Now, how that applies to comic books is, and this kind of goes to the whole manga thing, how a lot of people like manga. I truly believe now floppies are not the way to go anymore. Single issues, because it's too hard to keep there's too many gaps in between these stories now. With these books, that. But if there's a way to do a trade of your entire story and just put it out there, I think that is the better way to go if you can do it. Because again, it may not work now, but over time, people may see it and it blows up. I mean, prime example, Stranger Things. We talked about this. Is Kate Bush?
Yeah.
It took 40 years.
If anybody listens to that song, right?
Yeah, again, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
I know exactly what you're
some things
saying.
just take time. Like I use my book for that. Rabbit does okay now. Rabbit, saying like 5 years now, that could be what people, saying people may rediscover Rabbit. But at least if I was in a position where I could put the whole thing out, the story's there, so they can go back and read. It's not like they only see 2 or 3 issues and I got to play catch up or something. So that to me, that's the challenge in it.
Well, here's the other thing. I think, I'm a huge fan of floppies. I buy my floppies every Wednesday, right? I'm that guy. But I also understand when I talk to people all the time, they say, well, I'll wait for the trade. I'm like, man, there's a great story out there that you're not reading. Why? Because you're waiting for the trade. You hear it. You hear the buzz is out there, right? But when it comes to what my mindset on floppies is, I think the art of the ash can is an art that's kind of gone, because the idea of the ash can really was, here's something that's affordable that you could have, that's a tangible.
It's also a teaser.
It's a teaser of something that you might like. And if you like it, like most things, you want it. And it becomes so there's a lot of aspects to it. So I think the floppy today was the ash can of yesterday.
But the reason why I disagree about the floppies is this. People have short attention spans. What hurt Image Comics in the beginning? They weren't getting the books out in time. Mm-hmm. If you're putting out trades are going to attract the people that don't want to follow regularly, right? They're the guys that, like, I don't want to invest every month. I'm fine waiting 6 months for the new Walking Dead trade to come out, right?
Yeah.
And that's great. And there's a need for trades. But to build a fan base like Batman or Superman, you have to be in people's faces regularly. People have short attention spans. If I don't put out a book every month, you're limiting your growth. I mean, like, I'll give you an example, and you can all disagree with me. You're welcome to. That's what this is about. Look at the small publishers like Source Point Press and Scout, right? Because they can't really back all these print runs. I understand that. They want a self-contained story, 5 issues trade. They put it out, blah, blah, blah. Okay, they do that. But then you're starting over again with the next trade, which comes out 5 months later, 3-4 months later, and you're starting that fan base. You keep starting over and over again. But when you have a book going out every month, now obviously it's not as simple as it just keeps growing. But when you start to build momentum, which could take time, if at all, it will steadily start to show growth at some point, because you're in people's faces. I mean, how many shows did we watch the 8 weeks in a row? And that's all we talked about. And nobody talks about them anymore. You don't hear a damn thing about them.
Yeah. That's by design, man. This is what we are.
That's the same format as a trade paperback, right? When you can stream when Netflix lets you watch the whole show in the first 8 hours of your day, and then you've watched it and you're moving on. I saw Cobra Kai, right? I talked about it and raved about it for a week, and now I don't give a crap until the next one comes out. And you're starting over again.
Again, going back to the original question, I think the most realistic way to look at it is, what can you afford to do? Like, okay, you put your book out. If you're making a small, like 3,000 campaign, right? We're not talking about what the TNA books are in there making. Is that enough to keep your book going? Can you use Kickstarter just to produce the book, right? Just to get the book produced and get it out to as many local comic shops as possible, and kind of build that. It's gonna be a very slow, small process. And again, it goes back to the time thing. That, if I was to keep on going where I'm going now, that's what I would focus on. I would just do the campaigns just to get the book produced. I'm not worried about how many people I'm reaching. If I'm making enough money off this thing just to get the book made so I can put it in stores and stuff. And if I got to come out of pocket, that's cool. But the 3,000 made on Kickstarter, that's 3,000 I don't have to worry about putting into the book. Because again, look at a lot of campaigns, dude. All right, so let's take an example. Let's say there's one campaign that comes out. They want to get 2,000. They get 30 grand. All right, they've got 400 to 500 backers. Okay, and that by most standards is a very successful campaign. We've seen those campaigns. Now the question comes, like, when that book comes out, you may see a few people online post or tag that they got the book. Nobody's talking about this thing. Then they're doing another campaign a few months later. The same 4 or 5 people come back, they're buying it. You can't just buy this stuff and not talk about it, because now you're only going to get that one group of people. those people need to filter out to other people to get people talking about it, or you can be stuck in Kickstarter purgatory. You won't be able to get that
Right,
book to the next level.
but again, if the majority of these larger campaigns aren't from people who are actually reading the books, like TNA campaigns are a good example.
Yeah,
Not knocking them, just making the point. Why would they talk about it? I mean, the cover speaks for itself. It's a cool TNA cover. I didn't read the story. I don't know or care if the story was good because that's not what the book was made for.
that is true.
So it's hard to have word of mouth when the successful books are not being read. They're
Yeah,
being
and
collected. And that could go for anything. Like, I do a lot of big name covers, right? Maybe there are people that collect my book because they love having a Tyler Kirkham and Will Spasasio, but they don't give a crap what I wrote on the inside. So no, they're not telling everybody about it. They'll get the book slabbed or they just enjoy having a big name. They didn't read it. They don't care. My point is how Russ is talking about how the comic industry is shrinking, and I do think it's shrinking, but I do think it's going to make a comeback. We're in another 90s era in a sense that with all the grading and the movies falsely elevating prices and making the new Venom book is going to go through the roof, and then Venom tanks, and next thing you know, the book goes down after everybody spent all that money or they got slabbed, or the fact that these books aren't going to have a lot of value because none of them are getting destroyed. They're all safely protected in a slab. I mean, that's what makes a book valuable in the long run is its rarity, right? But if no books are rare anymore, then how do you make books rare? You use movies and BS to falsely elevate those prices, but the prices will never sustain. They'll never stay. They're going to eventually drop. And that's when they talk about the bubble bursting. So between CGC grading and speculative market and 50,000 variants, and I'm not talking about Kickstarters. You have to do that on Kickstarter. I'm talking about distribution. Why does Marvel need to do 7 variants for X-Men? Because they're trying to bolster their numbers because X-Men is not even breaking, 70,000 anymore, 80,000. Right now, Batman is the highest title at like 134,000 a month. That is nothing compared to what they used to sell.
Yeah.
So that's because they're not reading. And here's the other thing. I thought it was great to have movies, but the movies are kind of doing 2 things. They created this celebrity Hollywood feel for all the creators to where you can't even approach these people anymore, right? And why would I spend $5 a month on a comic when I can spend $8 a month watching all the movies? We basically said to you, you don't need to read a comic anymore. Come watch it happen.
Yeah, there's a problem there.
Reading them anymore.
Well, nobody's reading them anymore because what's happened in the last few years.
I know, but we're coming back to that because it's part of the equation.
Yeah. So what happened? Nobody's reading them anymore is because what's happened is they're not obtainable. They're not easy to jump in on. That's part of the success of manga these days. That it's easy. It's easy to jump in. It's simple enough that I don't have to go through a whole bunch of backstory to get there. Right.
Right.
The model that they were using the last 10, 20 years has been, let's just redo a relaunch. And then they do the relaunch and then and now even the relaunch is causing problems because it's a relaunch of a relaunch.
The legacy numbers and stuff is too much.
I'm happy for the legacy numbers, to be quite honest. Right? The legacy numbers helped me. Like, okay, now I know where it's at in the story.
But that was just fan service for the people that were pissed off that you started over at number 1 again.
Exactly, but it becomes
all the volumes.
But it becomes a whole volume because they are thinking about the trade. That's what it boils down to. They're thinking about the trade more than anything, and because I think they see more numbers in trades than they do in floppies, rightfully so. So what they do, they inflate the numbers by doing those incentives. The 1 in 50s, the 1 in 100s. Heck. I saw this weekend some X-Men books, 1 in 1,000 Jim Lee covers from posters from the original X-Men comics. They're doing that.
Yeah,
they're doing that kind of stuff now, so they could get some kind of buzz in it.
But
it's not successful. But going back to the whole Kickstarter of it all, when it comes to the regular person that just wants to get their book out. What is their goal at the end? Do they want to just tell the story, or do they want to get picked up by somebody, or do they want to write Spider-Man? Do they want to write Batman?
Right.
Everybody has their own reasoning for why they have a book out. An artist's reason is to get their art out, and then if it's about the story, it's about the story. It's about what's the next project that I could get a part of. How could I make my, cachet higher? That's why the collectors are doing it. I think there's collectors, there's readers, and we forgot about the third quantifier, and then there's family and friends.
Oh yeah.
Don't forget that group.
Yeah. We're going back to going a little bit on subject. Marvel and DC, we all know they can start making comics right now and they'll be totally fine. I just don't think Marvel and DC, that's where they're at. I think the only reason they're putting out comics now is to keep the IPs on the characters.
Yeah.
I think that's the only reason
movies are
they're
where
doing
their money is right now. And
yeah,
they sell 10 to 20 books a week. That's their average. I know that because I do the numbers every week.
Look how many titles DC has dropped, right? Because they just
but
aren't
again,
bringing in revenue.
They're doing it for IPs, man. Like, I mean, it's just easier, what I'm saying? Because these things got life. I think every 10 years they got to renew this stuff, or they don't. It's all weird things. But Spider-Man they probably make more money on Spider-Man underwear than they do that damn comic book.
Right. Well, it's always been about merchandising. I mean, honestly, G.I. Joe cartoon was made to sell toys.
So was Transformers, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Transformers movie was made to get new toys.
Yeah, and that's cool. I mean, I get it. I get the business sense, but also add what you said about the guys. You're right. Who do the Kickstarters? Now these guys out here trying to make. Cause a lot of guys are trying to get movie deals. They want their comic to be proof of concept. But what they don't realize is, I got Key Collector on my phone right now. I keep up with the trends and stuff. There's a category called option films. Option means nothing. That just means a studio has they might do something with it.
Right.
There are literally 40 image books alone that they got to choose from. They already got stuff that they're gonna pick from before they even touch these independent guys out there. Because a lot of these guys is making these image books and stuff. They're screenwriters. They're trying to get their movie back.
Right.
So there's that problem too. And I think there's so much non-comic stuff in the comic industry right now. I think that hurts things too. Because even with Kickstarter, you got Boom doing Kickstarters, man. Did they really have to do a Kickstarter for that Berserk book with Keanu Reeves? What I'm saying? Like there's so much stuff.
But they do that to try to build the fan base so that distribution makes sense. Because I don't know if a lot of people understand this. People think, oh, I get Diamond distribution, I'll make money every month. No. Diamond takes 60%. They want 60% of your cover price because the retailer has to get a discount and they got to get their share. So if you're selling a $5 book, you're now at $2 per book. Well, guess what? Here's a little story for you. When you're printing only 500 to 2,000 issues because you're a nobody and you're new, your print run is $2 and change a book. You're already in the negative and you haven't even paid for your creative team. So, and that doesn't count any marketing you have to do to get out there. So you're in the loss. You're not making money. So you can't go with one title. You have to have multiple revenue streams. So a lot of people are doing Kickstarters on the side while they've got that title or two going through distribution. Or they might do the special exclusive Kickstarter cover, or they might do the collected trade on Kickstarter, but still putting the floppies out monthly in distribution, because you have to find other revenue streams or you can't survive. Because you know what? The system is not built for you to survive making comics. It's just not.
But I think
unless you're already big.
Yeah, but I think that's one solution that could answer your question about the Kickstarter for the smaller guys. If you took 5 guys, right, each of them had a really good book, and they're doing okay Kickstarter numbers. If they all came together and just do like the original image models, look, guys, we're gonna have one company. We're still gonna do our own thing, but we're all gonna be under one company. We can market ourselves on Kickstarter, and that way we get our books. We can go to Diamond and stuff with like titles.
All right, but here's the problem. Here's the problem. Another problem we haven't gotten into. There's so much tribalism going on in the indie community.
Yeah.
You see those circles, those cliques, right? We're not going to name them, but we know the people that are over here in this one. There's the people here. And then there are some of us that we get along with all the cliques, but we're really on our own doing our thing, right? And there's tribalism based on politics, etc. I mean, there's people, there are people that will not go to a specific, one of the crowdfunding platforms because it's known to be for this group.
Right.
Or that group, the SJW and the Comic Skater or whatever. Now, if you're a Comic Skater, you can do well on Indiegogo. Not everybody does, but you can, right? There are some guys that I've seen that blew up big because of their stature in the comics gay community. They support them. And then there are people that, oh, I won't go to Kickstarter, or I won't support your book because that's SJW. So there's tribalism going on where I don't give a crap about any of that, because at the end of the day, I just want to put out a good book for everybody to love and enjoy. And I'm tired of vilifying each other for politics. So I just want to make that disclaimer. I am not here in favor or against either. I'm just talking objectively that there's a lot of tribalism going on, which does affect sales. People want to pick a side, right? They want to, I'm only doing this platform because of blah, blah, blah. So, how does that adversely affect creators and content? We'll go to Izzy on that one.
I say is when you get established as being someone in that community. That's what it boils down to. If you are being recognized as a person of that specific community, if you're part of the comic gators or anything like that, then you fall victim to it. If you're not, that's the truth. Now, being part of a collective when I started, the reason why I was part of a collective is because I couldn't do it on my own with an artist. As an artist, I could get a writer and we could write a book. But between the two of us, and we're talking about early 2000, I couldn't afford the marketing that it took, the amount of work it took in marketing. I couldn't do it. Right? I couldn't sustain it. So therefore, you become part of a collective group. There was when my group started, there was 12 of us. And what we did, we wrote a book, we wrote an anthology series, we stuck to the anthology model, and then we produce it some level, I wouldn't say some level of success, but I would say enough to be recognized, right? Enough to people to say, hey, look at these guys, they're doing something. And then more people would gravitate. And we were kind of like a welcome all kind of community, right? And then things got political, and as you know, it goes south from there. But the truth is that you have to find it's networking. It's networking. At the end of the day, is you find people that are like-minded as you, which you may or may not find, or more importantly, like you, Phil, you are in the need. People, enough people. You don't necessarily have to be part of this group. You don't have to be part of this group. You can play the neutral card, which is always a good place to be sometimes. And then your political agenda should, my personal opinion, should stay out of the business. But then again, it sometimes gets involved in the business or is pushed into the business.
Look, if you're doing political parody, I would say stay neutral in who you make fun of. But other than that, politics should stay out of business.
But it's always there, right? It's gonna always be there. It's always gonna be lurking around. It's always gonna be like, who do you support? Who do you not support? I hate having those conversations because I don't want to be able to have those conversations because for me, it's about just the style. For me, it's about the art. For you, it's about what's being read. It's
about putting out good content for people to escape all that crap.
Yeah, and again, as a creator, what is your agenda? Is your agenda simply to create, or like someone I knew, or is it to make money? You have to make that decision whether or not you want that to be the case.
Money, but that goes back to what Christopher was saying before, where Kickstarter's its intended use has changed for multiple reasons we had priorly discussed.
Yeah.
And it is no longer to jumpstart your project. It is now used as an online store or a revenue stream.
It's an easy way to get your word out without having to go through all the red tape that goes with it.
By the way, Joe Vasquez, you are welcome to drop your link to your Kickstarter in the chat. Please do. We welcome and support that here.
But going back to something you said, it's not always about making money for some people. It really isn't.
Right, but it is to the sense that you need at least to make money to continue to produce the product. I mean,
exactly. So you need money rather than you want money.
Right. But the point though is if Kickstarter is now used as a platform to make money, not get the project funded.
Mm-hmm.
Is Kickstarter a sustainable avenue for indie comics to succeed? And I'll elaborate quickly more in a sense of, like, say a guy like me, I have 26 issues written of my one book. I have other titles coming out. Kickstarter won't let me put out more than one campaign at the same time. So I'm limited to how many titles I can put out. One, two, with the whole process of that, you have a month campaign, 2 weeks before, 2 to 3 weeks before they give you your money. Then you got to go to printer, which is 3, 4 weeks. Next thing you know, the best you could do is every 3 months you're putting out a Kickstarter campaign, right? Can you sustain on that 4 books a year at the best? And to keep your fan base interested and not losing their attention, can you sustain that on a monetary issue where, say, maybe this month it was right before Christmas and people didn't do you the campaign took a dip, and do I have the money for the next one? So is Kickstarter, and we're going to ask Chris this one, a sustainable platform for people who are trying to get the story out? I'm not talking about make money on covers or booby content, because it is. If I'm making $35,000 every 3 months, that's a good annual salary, right? Despite what your overhead is, you're still doing okay. But what if you're trying to get readers on board? Is it sustainable?
Uh, I still say it's sustainable in a point if you can make enough to get the book produced. I don't think, as far as creating a fan base, I don't. I'm telling you, I don't. I don't think Kickstarter is the way to go to bring in an audience.
I would agree with that.
So do I. What would you recommend that I personally think, and people, I was on a show a year or two ago, and they all laughed at me and thought I was stupid. They were coming at me. The indie scene needs a distributor.
Haven't they tried that?
There are people I know that are working on trying to do that, but it takes a lot of capital, and then they're starting up from nothing as well. So it's very difficult, right? I mean, everything takes time. It takes years. You got to build. I get that. This is not about impatience. It's about the industry, in my opinion, right now is faltering. I don't think it's going to collapse. The bubble's going to burst, and I think it's going to be reborn again, and we're going to go back to some of the basics, right? I think there were a lot of things that contributed to its collapse, like I mentioned earlier, CGC, etc. But something else that I think contributed, you may call me wrong on this, Image Comics scared the living hell out of Marvel and DC. Marvel and DC do not want you buying a book because of the artist or the writer. They want you buying it for the IP. Because they lose power. You'll follow, look what Image did, right? They really hurt Marvel and DC. They really punched them in the gut. And they don't want a repeat of that. They want the IP to be in charge, not the creator, not the artist, I should say. And then it also gets into royalties and all these other things that, but now because you got movies going off of Walt, Thor, they took how many Walt Simonson's ideas, right? So they don't want Walt to have that power. They don't want any creator to have that power. That's why you can't name one legendary artist since 2000, but you can name 100 between the Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, and 90s. So that hurt, and it changed the business model for the big publishers. But it also changed the model for the smaller publishers, right? Because now the smaller publishers, they need big names to make a splash, but they can't afford them, or the big names have become celebrities. They don't want to waste their time on indie books, right?
The big names, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case with the big names, because what I'm seeing now is a reverse effect. What I'm seeing now is I'm seeing new creatives come into mainstream, make a name for themselves in some way. Mostly writers, not so much the artists, but mostly writers.
Right now, it's a writer's world.
It's a writer's world, right? So the writers go into the mainstream, and they write the books for the Marvels or the DCs, right? I'm gonna give you a perfect example: James Tynion IV, right? If you don't know who James Tynion IV is, I'll tell you who he is in a second. He was in Marvel. He was in DC. He did books. He did Batman. He did things like that. What made him blow up? The minute he got to do Something's Killing the Children.
Yeah. And then The Woods was good too.
And what was that?
The Woods was good.
The House on the Lake, the House by the Lake, something like that.
The Lake, Department of Truth.
Department. So he's writing these books, and now he's writing indie books, and his indie books are more popular than whatever he writes in Marvel and DC. Why? Because he used them as the platform to build his name credentials.
Right, but it goes back to what I said. The indie companies are trying to grab these big names to help sell their books because people don't trust
Well,
Phil Russert.
that's what Image, Boom, and they're just smaller mainstay. They're not like
Thank you.
you
They're
know what
not
I mean.
indie. They're
They're
not
not
indie.
indie in that traditional
Even
sense.
even Aftershock is getting bigger names now, and they
Yeah.
don't want to bother with the little guy
No,
because you're
they're
not a built-in audience. You aren't. You're too much of a risk on their investment, which
they,
you understand on a business aspect.
yeah.
But then it makes you say, but then what is your purpose? Why are you here? Why do I need you? Why do I
They're
need
just
you if you're
another
not helping
version
me
of
build
them.
up?
Yeah, they're just another version of what a Marvel DC is. The only difference is they're
Big
not
creative
tied
world.
to the superhero world. They're not
Right.
tied into that superhero. They're more in the lines of what horror is huge these days. Horror
It
is
is.
huge,
It
right?
is.
It's I can't walk across the street without seeing another horror book coming out, right? So that's big. So what's the other thing that's romance
But
stories
yeah, it's
not
all
as
fad
big.
though. It's all
But yeah,
fad. I mean,
I
it
think
just
it
is.
is.
I mean,
But
vampires and wolves, werewolves were huge for a
well,
long time. And then it goes away,
what
and then
was
it
it?
comes back.
Zombies a few years ago, right? Everybody was
Right.
writing the
Well,
zombie book, right?
slashers is a big thing now. It seems like.
Right.
So the truth is that these companies, and Dark Horse was one of the first ones, right? Dark Horse, Image, IDW, Boom, you name them. They're just a smaller version of what Marvel and DC is,
Right.
right? Marvel and DC is owned by conglomerates. They're owned by Warner Brothers or Disney. So what
Well,
they are, that's cash cow to them.
Well, even look at like a new publisher like Whatnot. Whatnot's in publishing now. They went and got the Wesley Snipes book because they wanted
Yeah,
a name. But
yeah,
like the guy asked me to look at my book. He's like, "Can you give me your book? I'd love to check it out. It looks interesting." I gave it to him. I never heard from them
yeah.
because maybe they just didn't like the content or whatever, which is fine. But it makes you wonder how much of it is also that I'm just not a name and they need
Mhm,
to they're starting up a publishing company. They want to grab the biggest names
mhm,
possible and they feel like what am I going to do to help them because I'm a nobody. So again, does content have anything to do with this business anymore, or is it celebrity status, flash, bright, shiny? You know what I'm saying? um uh, Go ahead.
Everybody's looking for that new guy, that new person. Everyone's
I
looking
don't
I
for
think
it.
they
think
are anymore. I don't think
it's
everyone's looking
time.
for the new guy. I mean,
So
well, no, you're right. They are looking for the new guy because they want to be the big person to bring that good new guy up. But the big publishers, the corporate heads, they want to ride the big
They
names.
want to control it.
Right, but they want to have the big names. I mean, they just put JR back on Spider-Man because they were losing. Spider-Man wasn't selling, so they had to
Mhm.
do something. So they bring the
brand,
big name
what?
back.
Brand recognition is a thing. You do
Yes,
need that. There's a reason a lot of independent people try to get with Image. Even if the book doesn't work out that well, just having that eye on that cover, that's going to get eyes on our book. And sometimes that's what it takes to get people to look at your book, is that brand recognition. Prime example is that book Stray Dogs that came out.
Mhm.
Now that was like, they pitched it as like, Silence of the Lambs meets Lady and the Tramp. That was not the first book to do that with the talking animals. There's a book called Animosity. And Chaz, what's that other book with the talking animals in it? Oh, she
by
can't
the
hear
way,
me.
Joe
But
is absolutely right in what he just said there. It's
yeah,
brilliant.
there was another one, but Image did it because it was Image. You know what I'm saying? So, and that, again, that's not. I'm not talking bad about the book. The book is cool, but again, it's one of those things.
But what made
Timing
Stray
and
Dogs
brand.
big? What made Stray Dog big? It wasn't so much about the story, which I think the stories are actually
It was
really
Image.
good. But it was also the fact that they were doing homage posters too. They kept
Yeah.
on doing the horror posters
Oh yeah.
with the dogs in it,
I
and
got
everybody
some
was
of
like, "Oh, this is awesome! This is so cool!"
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
people were buying those books, not even about the story. The story ended up being good, but they were buying it because of those covers.
It's a
Those
gimmick
covers
thing.
was, and the covers always sold.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
always been the
think
case.
about it now. How many people are complaining that X-Men books or Batman or whatever just aren't good anymore, but they're still spending that money every week? They're hoping to get back to their glory with those books,
That's
and
collectors, man, buying the variants.
well, but I do think there are some readers that are hanging on because they love Batman that much. They grow up with him that they're hoping that he gets back to his glory. But again, that's that trust and that's that faith in the history. It's like Kobe Bryant got that last contract with the Lakers and he wasn't performing anywhere near what he was. Great basketball player, but um, his contract wasn't for what he was at that point. His contract was based on what he had done prior, right?
Mhm.
Well, it's kind of the same mentality here. Again, Scott Snyder is a great writer, but a lot of people didn't like what he did on Justice League. but they still trusted him with Nocturne because he had done so many things so well. Batman, Court of Owls, and all the other things he's written. That he had earned that trust with people, which does go into brand, like you said. Branding became big in the early 2000s, right? Basketball athletes, basketball, football players, branding, branding, branding. Have a personality, showboat. Be that which is going to lead into something else. That influencer on social media, which goes into what you're talking about with YouTube, Izzy. What are your thoughts on influencers? Do they have too much influence in what gets seen and what doesn't? Because people really honor the word of these influencers and follow them. And do some of those have credentials or do they not? Or they just go on YouTube with a big mouth like me? I mean, because influencers can do a lot for you or they can totally ignore you and not help you. So, what are your thoughts, Izzy, starting with you because you're YouTube, on
Yes.
influencers?
So some people might hate what I'm going to say. We need them. I'll tell you why. Because they're still bringing people in. Maybe not for the best reasons, right? So there are a few of them that I clearly say they don't give a rat's ass about the companies. What they care about is how am I going to take this book and flip it to the next person? That's the
Right.
idea, right? But we still need them because why is the book so popular? Again, there are books that are popular. Why? Because a TV series just launched
But do
and
you
this
think
character's in the
influencers, in their attempt to build themselves up, are only focusing on the big stuff? Do you think that they should try to help out or focus on
I
this, or
think
it's not their responsibility?
I honestly think there are some that really do. I do believe there are some that are the real deal. They're not a lie. I'm not going to say names because you might have opinions on them. But the
Right,
thing
right.
is, as many as they're out there, there are those that are just they're fakes. They're absolute fakes, and but they're still bringing attention to the
But the
industry.
ones with those large audiences, though, they're not, are they talking about the small guy, or are they just talking about boom,
That's
the
what I'm
Well, let's talk
saying.
the
about that.
moment?
There are some that do. There are some that definitely
Point
do.
them my way.
Was that?
Well,
Point them my way.
But the thing is, they're also you mentioned Scout Comics, for example. Scout Comics has a great way of marketing because they're marketing through them,
Oh,
right?
I'm not knocking those publishing companies.
No,
I'm talking about for
but I'm
someone
saying
like
they're
me with
marketing.
my
They're
business
mark.
model of an ongoing. What
So
can they do for
so
me?
Scout Comics for all its worth, they have some pretty interesting storylines. The biggest problem right now is the delays that they're going through, right? But but at the same time, what they do is that they could get an influencer and say, hey, we're gonna do this, and with you use my promo code, and you can tell people to get 10% off the
Hmm.
company, right? Bam,
Right.
cool, bring people in. So that's why those influencers help out. It's charisma. That's what they do. Those influencers are charismatic
Sure.
individuals. And being
Sure.
a charismatic individual brings people to attention. I watch these guys because I'm entertained, and two, there is something. You mentioned Key Collector, right? I got Key Collector as well, right? Why? Because it's giving me information that gives me to understand. Now, am I going to fully follow that kind of stuff? No, I don't care less. You know why? Because I don't need to buy a book that came out 20 years and only because it has a cameo appearance of someone that it's important. I don't care about that. I'm a reader. I like to read the book. My collection is pretty damn good. Why? Because I'm a reader and I've been collecting since the 80s.
Right.
But these influences are necessary to keep the business alive because someone's got to be talking about the comic books. When we get those people that do talk about the comic books, sometimes they don't know how to talk about the comic books properly. So it
Right.
becomes challenging. You need someone that has a good balance. So yeah, I think like the TV evangelists, right? Some of them you're gonna spot them a mile away. Some of them are so good you can't even tell.
Joe, I do know some people have reached out to Entertainment Earth. I don't know what the results were for that. I couldn't speak on it, but and that's the thing. And we're gonna get Christopher's take on what we are just talking about. I mean, Bleeding Cool. They're only gonna do news on major books. Yeah. Look, I'm not here to talk about the credibility or lack of credibility of any company. We're not here to bash anybody. And I want to make a disclaimer very clear. If you're misunderstanding me, I'm not bashing the publishers like Scout or Source Point Press. They're legitimate companies run by good people. and they do serve a purpose. What I meant was, if you're not looking to go by their model, what can they do for you? Because they're not going to take you on if you have an ongoing book, is all I meant. There is
Yeah.
definitely a need for them, and they definitely do things for the people they contract. So this was not a negative on them. It was just saying that someone like me is in a very precarious position as being a nobody and want to build a following to do a monthly title. That's all I meant. So just to make that
Mhm.
clear. As far as Bleeding Cool or any influencers, we are not here to say anybody's good or bad. That's for you to decide. We respect everybody's hustle. We respect everybody's ability to make a dollar, however you want to do it. Hopefully, it's with integrity, but that's up to you. But we're just talking about the pros and cons of the different avenues of what's going on. And we're trying to do it objectively, pose questions for you to answer yourself or look into, and that's really it. Now, as far
Mhm.
as the influencers, Christopher, what are your thoughts on influencers on social media and what they're actually influencing as opposed to what they're not, etc.?
Okay. Well, I agree with his. I mean, yeah, you need them. They're definitely crucial because there's a lot of influencers I listen to. You know, they're
Mhm.
entertaining. And you do learn a lot of things. But this is my question with influencers, and Izzy, you were one of them. I'm glad that you actually have true independent people on your show and bring awareness, about comics. We need more guys like you. And I'm pretty sure there's a few I have not seen, but I don't think there's enough influence to talk about the true indie comics. Because you said, like, for example, you talk about the Scout thing. That's cool, but it's not us. Now, I've had a friend that brought up a good point to me, is that a lot of independent books they're not searchable in the SEO. So why would an influencer talk about something that's not going to bring traction to their channel? If
Exactly.
we would need, all right, so again, not naming names, but you guys know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of big comic book influencers, all right? They built their following off of bashing Marvel and DC, which is fine. Everybody has their opinion. But the energy, and they've created droves of fans because of this. But for somebody, if you hate it that much, there's so many independent books out there that's the alternative to that you guys be talking about to bring traction to these books. They have the power to do that. They don't.
Well,
Mhm.
I will
That's
say
my
this.
issue.
I will say this. If you and I are thinking of the same individual, that person actually went out of their way to promote me, and I appreciated it. And they got attacked by a lot of people,
Oh, wow.
um, but but yeah, I mean, the
That's my
problem.
issue with it.
Again, it's kind of like, say I want to go. I want to get. I just got my degree as a nurse practitioner, and I go to get a job, and no job will hire me until I have experience, but I can't get experience until I get hired. That's what's going on here. I'm not going to talk about you or help build you up because you don't have a following. Well, but if I had a following, I don't need you to talk me up. It's like this.
Right.
It's this
Well,
continual
it's a
revolving
revolving.
door.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that's the problem that I see. The problem I see is creators who are not willing to get themselves out, not to get hired. I'm not saying that to get hired. You, if you are a creator, what are you doing to get noticed? What are the things? Are you just going to Kickstarters, or are you doing the shows, right? Like you, Phil. You're going to the shows. You're talking to people. People are starting to recognize it. We went to Baltimore the other day. Did I have to go to Baltimore? No, I didn't have to go to Baltimore because guess what? I took a loss. I take a loss in practically every place I go. You know why? Because I'm not really selling anything other than my name. So I
But when
get
you did the
people
table
to,
dance and the thong, you made a lot of money.
well,
But
that
now you're
apparently,
pretty
yeah,
busy.
yeah, we can talk about that another time. That's Izzy after hours. Um, but the truth
Oh,
is that why did we go out to those places? Because that's the way we did it before, and that's the way we
you
continue to do it
network.
today.
Yeah, you got to be
Networking is
hands-on,
so.
ground
I
floor.
spend I stood out to late on Saturday night. I stood late talking to creators. I didn't mention anything about my channel to any one of them. I didn't tell them you had to come to my show. I didn't do anything. You know what I did? I just listened to what they had to talk about, listened to their stories. If it was a comic related, great, even better. If it wasn't, then it was just fun networking with them, just talking to them, getting to know them. Because at the same time, they didn't look at me like, hey, look at this guy's just trying to get my namesake recognition.
Right.
This guy's trying to get me
Well,
to be on his channel.
a
I didn't
lot of
ask
people,
any of them.
a lot of people don't understand networking. If first of all, if you're networking with big names, these guys aren't stupid. These men and women,
Exactly.
these men and women have people trying to be their buddies all the time to get free stuff or to say I'm friends with so and so. They're not dumb. Any networking you do,
Hmm.
if you're not investing in that person in some way, they know it, and they know that you're just looking to use them. And I'm not going to go into this deeply, but I had posted the other day or like a couple of weeks ago about people who just go in your DM saying follow my campaign, but never
Oh
built a
yeah.
relationship with you. Now, some people got upset and they were like, "Oh, why don't you want to help a fellow creator?" And I don't think it's about not wanting to. No one wants to feel they're being used as a tool.
Hmm.
It's like, well, if you can't take the time to invest in me, why am I investing in you?
Hmm.
No relationship should ever be anything but mutual, right? Whether it's business or personal. And I think people don't feel it's mutual when you just, they know that they were one of 500 people that just got that DM. You don't even know, they don't even know who you are or give a crap what you're doing, right? I mean, imagine I'm always going, Izzy, watch CreatorCon. Izzy, why don't you watch CreatorCon? Buy Tragedy, Izzy, but I've never watched an episode of Izzy's show. Izzy's gonna be like, well, dude, that's pretty selfish. It's all about you. How about a little give and take here? That's what a healthy relationship is, right? It's mutual. So when you're networking, these people aren't dumb. They know you're using them. People
Hmm.
know when you're
Well, second.
schmoozing and using, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have a Ryan Fraser moment.
And the truth is that you know what, you want to build relationships that are positive
Lasting
and
and
lasting,
positive.
positive
Yeah.
and lasting, and relationships that you know are authentic and not fabricasted,
Yeah.
right? There are creators out there that I've already
Sorry.
developed relationships
Yeah.
with that, you know what, even though we don't talk every day, even though we don't see each other every day, we could easily say something to each other and we're like right back to being, like close as a friends. So the truth is that, when you're doing this thing, when you're trying to build, going back to the Kickstarter, when you're trying to build a Kickstarter, yeah, the Kickstarter is going to get you all so far. It's building those relationships that's going to get you to that next level. Getting people to say, hey, I'm really interested. It really does help plugging each other in that way. It's like, oh, go check out Flash, this stuff, right? Go check out this book. Like, a simple IG story that's not going to take you more than 10 minutes to do. Say, hey, go read this book or go to this site. That's what you do because people see that and be like, oh, maybe this guy's as important. That's the benefit of the influencers. I'll tell you right now, there was one influencer. Again, I'm not going to say their name but very, very up there on the totem pole as far as influencers go. I found it very pleasing for myself that I took a photo with this influencer, only to find out that a few days later, this same influencer put my name on his platform and say, "Go check this guy. He's a good guy," and things like that. Now, it wasn't an influencer like Phil. When Phil does it, I'm like a little worried, but I had to throw in one piece right there. But the truth is that to me says a lot that this person went out of their way to say, go check out this guy. You know what? Because he did, as an influencer, they didn't have to do it. I'm going to you. You're not coming to me. But enough to say, go check this guy out. Oh, that's awesome. And now I got some of those influencers are now following me, whether it was just because they wanted to hit the follow, but the fact that I'm a follow now is enough for me because now someone could say, why is he following that guy? Now I got to go check that guy out. So that's kind of it. Again, it's one of those things where we help each other out in that way. Did Phil's camera froze or that's just his face?
That's just
Okay. Did you see that, Chris? It just stood there like that.
I was dealing I was dealing with a minor child crisis.
But no, Izzy, you're absolutely right, man. Because again, like even when I met Phil, you guys, I just reached out, kind of like the tragedy. I saw you posted, hey, I just reached out, kind of like the book, and I started sharing his stuff. And if you look at my Facebook, I always like share people's stuff, and I never share people things because I want them to look at my stuff. Because that doesn't, I still like stuff, and I'm always happy to see something new, even with YouTube channels and stuff. If somebody does a cool video, either don't got that many followers stuff. If I like what they got to say, I'm gonna follow them. Because that's what gets them there. And you just never know. Just relationships go a long way. Good, true relationships, like you said. Just talking to people, getting to know them.
But going into relationships again, here poses another question. Of your followers on Kickstarter, how many are just people either A, hoping you'll pledge on theirs, so you're swapping money really, and you're swapping, books essentially, right?
We call
And how
that
many are
sub
your
for
friends and
stuffing.
family trying to support you as opposed to building new fans? That's the first question. And the second thing is, my last campaign did less. We could talk about the economy, or maybe I put it out too soon after the other. I don't know. I had grown exponentially by my third campaign, and it was very positive, and I was very happy. And the next one didn't do badly, but it was subpar to the one before it, right? But what I noticed is a large portion, I mean, almost a quarter bought the PDF, which tells me they are readers. They want
Right.
to read it and just didn't have the money for a physical copy or whatever.
Right.
Of all of those people that I emailed a PDF, how many do you think got it and actually read it? And you can't quantify it. You don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
these are the things that I think get in the way of growth, right? I mean, I love and appreciate the people that support me because they like me. And I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying, but that's different than growing a fan base.
Well, let me ask you again. I'm not directly asking this question. I'm just saying in general. Doing the Kickstarter and actually putting your book out in stores, do you see which one do you feel has more sales? Like, because again, like if you
I
do,
think short term Kickstarter, long term distribution, but you have to endure the major money losses you're going to get in distribution. You're going to get hit hard. You're going to be, it's like any business, you have to invest money into it before you can make money. And you've got to hope that by book, because look, statistics show a book one might do pretty good in distribution. And when I say pretty good for a guy like me, maybe it's 1,500 to 2,000 copies. We're not talking about in the
right,
teens,
right,
because people like number ones. They want to collect
right,
number ones for appearances, for collector reason. What if this blows up? I
correct,
got the first appearance of tragedy, all that stuff. Issue two's severely drop. Issue three
right,
is severely drop. And maybe you start to climb back up by
4 or
issue 4 or
5,
5
yeah,
because people start getting a sense of the story and if they like it or not, or that this is serious, it's going to continue. It's not going to fall off the face of the earth. But can you sustain losses of a lot of money for 4 or 5 months? Because you got to put up those print runs. You get paid out quarterly from distribution. So I've already put out 3 books before I'm getting paid for the first one. That means I fronted the print run for 3 books, right?
right,
Now, the conundrum is, all right, I can afford the print run because I only sold 400 copies. But then the bad news is I only sold 400 copies. So, and the print run is way more expensive because I didn't sell in the thousands. If I
Yeah.
sell 20,000 copies, all right, now my print run is down, and I'm getting out there. But I mean, the thoughts of me actually selling 20,000 copies out of the gate. Sorry about the noise. That's all of them.
you're good.
The
But would
chances
you?
of me selling 20,000 out of the gate, they're not good. Plus, I'm not going to get all those backers on Kickstarter to buy my book when it goes to distribution because they already own it.
That's true. But this is my question for both of you guys. Is it fair to say for sales distribution wise is a better way to gauge the fan base than it is on Kickstarter?
I do. A real fan base that wants to read and
Yeah,
collect, I do. I do. Because Kickstarter, you're going to get all your family, friends that want to support, sure, but you're really limited in how. Sometimes it's just that your product is just not good, right? And
right.
sometimes it is, but nobody knows. Look, my conventions that I run, they're small, right? I get 2,000 people in attendance.
Maybe fuck all that,
I
bro.
have had big names at that show, but if you don't know those big names are there, who cares,
Mhm.
right? The
That's
quality and
true.
content was there, but if enough people don't know that Jim Lee's there or Jim Steranko or whoever's there, I'm not going to get the attendance. I'm not going to get the numbers. So it's not always a case of the quality of the product is no good. It's nobody knows it's there.
Right. What about you, Izzy? What do you think?
That's a hard question for me since I haven't done a Kickstarter in years. But I could say You have to be able to utilize as many platforms you need to use to get your word out. But more importantly, you have to be able to utilize those platforms wisely.
Right.
I think what a lot of people have failed to utilize has the potential to being a good thing, which is make a website, put stuff on your website, create your own very version of a webtoons, right? The reason why I say that is that in order for you to get name recognition, you need to have a product that they could read. If you're selling the product that they could read, why should I put any type of money down for it? You know what I mean? There's so many things out there. Why is yours more important than that one? If you were my friend, that's a different story, right? Because I can say that's my friend. I know that person. But then
Correct.
again, I know you, right? But if
Right.
I don't know you and I don't know your story, what matters? I had a guy this weekend, really good guy, and Phil probably talked to him for a little bit too. Really good guy. One thing he did, a few guys did it for me actually. All right, when we started talking, he realized, hey, this guy's been in the business for a while. He gave me his book. He was willing to give me his book without me putting a dime down.
I was about to say. I was like, go ahead. I got
Yeah.
a story about
So
that.
so he was willing to give me his book without me spending a dime, right? I was glad to take that book, and I was glad to say I'm going to look at it and talk, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it. Now, I be honest, I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to, right? And when I finally go to read that book, if it's good and it's great, I am going to promote the crap out of that book, whether he
But
knows
most
it or
people
not,
don't do that though. I've given
right?
away free
Yeah,
copies. They've loved it, but they never shared it with anybody
yeah,
else.
but that's
So
the
unless
thing.
they're placating me.
But then again, you have to sometimes you have to play to that game, right? You have to be like do it because everybody's doing it, right? When you're in New York Comic Con and there's that guy with the CD saying, "Listen to my music, here you go, free CD," right? They're doing it so you can listen to music that you probably never gonna listen to.
Right.
But the thing is, you gotta put it in the platform. I think the Kickstarter platform is great, but just like I said, the art of the ash can, the purpose behind the ash can is so that you could read something that's not going to cost you anything, and then you could take that risk.
Well,
I'm not going to take a risk on a $10 book. I'm just not.
right.
If I
You know
don't
what?
There's
know anything
also
about
there's
it.
free comic book day. There's things like that. There's preview books, and that you can even make limited. Like I did the San Diego Comic Con preview book,
Mhm.
which was only the first 16 pages of my 30-page book.
Right.
So yeah, you're right. And to me, giving away your product for free is definitely not a bad thing. And I'll tell you why. Say it cost you $2.30 on that book that you just gave away a full book, right? If I gave it away to uh, 10 people, I spent $23.60, right? Well, right?
Mhm.
Okay, I give it to 100 people, I spent 200 and whatever. What would you be spending in Facebook marketing or somewhere else that you can't even quantify who it's reaching and this and that? At least you know these people are getting the book, they read it, they come back, give you feedback or a review, or they come back to the Kickstarter. So depending on what you'd be spending in marketing is what you have to look at. It's like right now with fan art. People don't seem to understand the reason why DC and Marvel will turn an eye on fan art and then all of a sudden give you a cease and desist is if you're not making a lot of money, you're less than what they'd spend on marketing, and their characters are out in every convention and out there, right? They don't have to spend to have a Marvel booth there and promote their characters and
Mhm.
this and that. You're doing it
Absolutely.
for them. But once you start making too much money, now you're cutting into their profit because
Mhm.
that's
Right.
more than they would have spent on marketing, right? And that's when you get a cease and desist. So, yeah, give out your stuff. If you think you're going to make $1 on every freaking thing you do when you're a nobody, you're not going to make any money.
Yeah, exactly. And when I started, when we started our comic book thing, I came up with the idea of having a 99 cents comic. It was a floppy, right? 99 cents copy. It was a 32-page copy that we spend well more than 99 cents a book,
Right.
right? The guys in my team were like, "Why are you selling this book for 99 cents?" It's like because someone's willing to just say, "Here's your dollar,"
Yeah.
right? Not
Right.
to and it's like a donation, right? It's like when you got a panhandler. You're not going to give unless you're really that kind of person, but you're not going to give a panhandler $100. especially if you have a good idea what they're going to do with it, right?
Right.
But you're willing to give them the change that's in your pockets for it. So
Right.
so for getting the word out, for getting people to understand things, heck, put $20, $50 down on a website and then put your stuff there and put whatever you want to put in there, and then go to the Kickstarter and let Kickstarter do the work with you.
Well,
But again, that's part of that's part of that process. That's part of doing that work. You have to, like you said, it's every business model. You have to spend money to make money.
Right. I mean, think about it. If you're opening a comic store, you have to get a loan for that 60 grand to 80 grand to get it open before you even have one, weekly buyer, right? I mean, you have to invest capital, period.
Yeah.
And that's a form of investing capital. Like Joe said, free needs to bring the reader back to a website. Traffic is money. The more eyes you get on something, the higher the chances of somebody buying it. If I asked 100 pretty girls, if I was single and I asked 100 pretty girls out, right, I have a higher chances of one saying yes than if I asked 3 girls out. Right?
Yeah,
it's
because they're sorry for you.
Hey, whatever. Listen, I got a gorgeous wife, so I did something right.
But no, but you're right. I mean, I'll give myself again, for example. Before we did rap, the reason I'm here right now with the books I got is because I was like, okay, I want to make comics, but I can't just come out the floodgate with Rabbit or whatever else and try to expect people to buy it, no matter how good, I may think the story is or how good the art is. So what I did was I did the Pop Singer book first. I'll tell you the numbers. I spent $2,000 to get that book made. All right, with no intention of ever selling it. I literally made that book to show people what we could do. Okay, I put it on the website, the original Flash Delirium website. Same team. That was also for me to test out my artist to live to see if it worked for Rabbit. So that right there is what got people interested in us to this day. And that I used that to set up Rabbit. And I did make some ash. I don't know if I sent you one or not, Izzy, but I did. Before we put out Rabbit, we did an ash can of Flash Delirium. Yeah, you got them, Phil. And
you got to send me that.
Yeah. And it's got a couple of pictures. It's got a couple of clips from the Pop Singer. That's got the first teaser for the Rabbit. So technically, that's his first appearance. We made 100 copies of that. All right, gave away for free. I went to a couple conventions. I mailed them to people. Chaz and I numbered each one of those 1 out of 100, 2 out of 100, and we signed each one of them.
That's old school right there.
Yeah, I still have
school.
the first 5, but the rest are out there. Some actually got lost. I don't know where some of them are at. But we did that. That's $2,000 plus that. That I was willing to give away, just to get the book made, and that was what got people interested in Rabbit, so yeah, I've never been issue again. I'm giving away because we overprinted the issue 1 of Rabbit. I'm giving away a shitload of those. I'm sorry, buddy. Crap load of those for free.
It'd be great when his first word is that. And it will be, trust me. Anyway, so look, we're getting close to the end of a 2-hour mark. So we've talked about all the issues, all the problems, or all the obstacles, things of that. Before we end the show, I do want you guys to promote and plug, but I'm going to ask you, and let's keep this contained and short. What are a few ideas you have, Izzy, to circumvent or solve or, hurdle some of the issues we've discussed?
So for me, it's a matter of getting the right people out and getting the wrong people out. Getting the right people in and the wrong people out. That's probably the way to say it. So for me, as a reader first, artist second, YouTube content creator third, my intention is to work with individuals who are talented to get the work, that get their name out and then promote their stuff. If you're not that talented and if you're not as good, then my job isn't to get rid of you. My job is to help build you to become that, so that someday you can be, because I've been there. I've done that. We all were 9 years old one day drawing our comics and every character looked exactly the same, right? So I want to encourage as many people as we possibly can. But at the same time, I don't want people to go in thinking they got it already when they don't. The biggest issue I had in Baltimore, and this is what I spend my majority day on Sunday, is talking to individuals, seeing where their mindset was. There are plenty of individuals when I told them, heck, have you spoken to the creators that are over there? And the answer they had was, well, I don't want to really get in their way because, I don't want to waste their time looking at my materials. And I said, dude, They want you to go to them. They're waiting for you. We don't. This is one of the biggest issues, and I could go. I could go on a rant on this one. Uh, they're just not bringing their stuff to be shown. They just go in and they make something and say, okay, because mom and dad and my best friend says it's fantastic, I'm gonna plug this on Kickstarter, right? We need to get rid of that mindset. We need to go to a place where people can say to us, this is what you've done. This looks great. Now you're ready. But at the same time, we also need people to come up and say, you're not ready for that. Here's what you need to do to get ready, and then work on it. And those are the people who are going to be successful. There were some people like that. There were some people that weren't like that. There were some people like, I was one person that says, I need to look for 4 creatives. And I said, just 4? Yeah, I got to talk to 2 of them. I didn't get to talk to the other 2. It's like, you want to talk to everybody. You can't. Because they're the ones that's going to talk, because they're in the business. They're the ones that have been doing it as long as they have. They're the ones that going to what worked and what didn't work for them. And then you take that information and you adapt it to what's going on in your world. That's what you need to do. And that's not happening today.
And what do you think, Christopher, are ways to circumvent like some of the issues we've brought up that hurt creatives, or not hurt, but can be that roadblock for some trying to get out there?
Well, there's a few things. Like as you said, being an influencer, you might just have to build your following another way and come back to the comic book thing. You might have to do a YouTube channel or a Twitch or whatever.
So use another avenue.
Yeah. Again, it's not the only problem with that is you might run the chance of you being more important in your product to to the followers. But it's one of those things. If that's what it takes just to get people to invest in you, you might have to do that. Again, so like doing a YouTube channel, hell, doing TikTok now. TikTok, there's all kinds of stuff. Or one thing I thought about, if you already got your book made, maybe you can take those pages and do like a motion comic or something. Put one up every day on your website or on YouTube. Maybe that'll get people invested who may not necessarily look at the book. Then they may want to take interest in it. It's going to boil down to how creative you can get and just having an open mind, because there is no one path to success with this stuff. It's going to be different for everybody. And I just think if you truly want to do this, you got to stick with it. In the worst case scenario, if you got to keep doing the Kickstarters just to get the book, again, if you can get the book produced, if you're not in the red, if you can make enough and keep your production a number down and just get the book made, you just got to keep on doing that and just talk to comic book stores, try to get into a couple stores. If you got try to talk to more people, like as you said, get cool with an influencer, try to get on their show and drop your book on that. There's different ways to do it, but I think the biggest thing you got to stick with it. If you really want to do this, you can't get discouraged, because you're not going to stop people from putting books out that may not be the quality. There's no way. That's like trying to end world hunger. You just can't do it, but you can control, or at least navigate what you do. So that's
lastly, have an agenda and have a real goal. Set your SMART goals. Know where you want to be and know where you want to go. Like
realistic expectations too. Be realistic about things.
Yeah, be realistic, but a lot of people are not.
Yeah, I would say before you do anything, whether it's writing or drawing, whatever, you need to decide what your goals are, like you said, and they need to be realistic. And this is coming from a guy who hasn't made it yet, so this isn't like the golden words that are going to get you there.
You're doing a great job, Phil.
Opinion.
I'm not just saying that.
You're doing really good. It really is.
Thank you, but I think
I'll pay you later.
Too, but yeah, the point is, you have to have an infrastructure in place, and you can't do that until you understand 3 things. I'm a business. I may love what I'm doing, but this is business. 2, what is my goal with this business? What am I looking to do with this business? Right? And then 3, who are the people that put me in the best position to win, and vice versa, because you have to offer them. It has to be a mutual relationship. You do those 3 things, you now have an infrastructure. Another jackass. I can't stand these people. Um,
No, they're giving you their comments, private dance,
yeah,
private chat.
really.
That's what they're doing.
So
I'm not
now
seeing this.
you
So what are y'all looking at?
No, it's in the comments. So if you
yeah.
go in the comments, you can see the
If you look
comments
at
coming in.
comments, but anyway, you
Okay.
get your infrastructure in
Trust me, you
place.
don't want to see it.
That's the most important, right? Because you can't get somewhere unless you got your car in order, right? It's working, it's set. You know how far your car can go. It's in good what shape it's in. Who your co-pilot's going to be. Do you have your GPS? Yada yada yada. That's the first thing. The second is a lot of people are going to hate me for saying this, and I do apologize. You should not go make a book or anything until you do two things: understand this industry, how it works. That means, how do you create a book? How do you work with an artist? How do you write a script? What are sequentials? Understand the other disciplines that you're working with, letterers, etc. Understand basic concepts of communication, right? And understand the things that in the industry that are maybe unspoken rules or things like that. Learn what you're going into. I mean, if you want to do it just as a hobby, that's fine. But if you really want to make this, invest in knowledge first. Learn what the business is about, what it's like, how you get there. That's the first thing.
Mhm.
Second thing, understand that if you're going to make a book, get the money first. If it means you got to put that book off for 2 more years, fine, because that book you put out, that is your marketing, that is your reputation. If your art is subpar, if your writing is subpar, you are not going to succeed because you are not professional standard. You have to invest that time before you invest the money, period. Because if your book doesn't look pro, you can't sit there and say, why is it nowhere? So to attach to that, go learn how to write. Go learn how to write a script. Go learn how to draw. Focus on your craft and get to a point where you're professional level. If you want to be a professional, you have to be at that level. You have to put that time in. And you have to be realistic with yourself. There are a lot of people who think they're way better than they are. They think that they're at a level they're not, and they don't see it. It's like, no offense, dude, but what you're posting right now, no, it's not professional level. So stop. And here's another thing: stop trying to trick people into thinking you're a professional level because they can see through it. If you're putting all your focus into, I'm a somebody, and you're not really being realistic that I'm not yet, but I'm going to get there, you're not focused on getting there. Do you get what I'm saying? There are people who try to create the illusion of their brand as opposed to earn it through your product, earn it through your business acumen, earn it through how you are working and hustling. You know, image, your brand, your image, your reputation, that comes with your body of work, not because you try to trick people that you're somebody. It doesn't work that way.
Mhm.
So don't try to hobnob with a big name and then, oh, I know such and such. I'm good friends with them. Who gives a rat's ass? Nobody cares. What did you do yesterday? Because the last thing is, you're only as good as the last thing you did in any industry. So you better make sure that last thing you did is professional level quality, period. End of story. And you're always going to grow and you're always going to learn if you want to. You got to do those things. You got to learn to understand the algorithms on social media and what true marketing and promotion is. Otherwise, you're hitting a wall. All right. You got to know what tricks can help you circumvent the algorithm on Facebook. And I did that. And I try to learn as they keep changing. You have to. And then you got to realize you got to put money in before you're going to make it. If you think you're going to make high dollar and everything, don't outprice yourself. Be realistic with who you are, where you are, and then where you want to be. Learn the ins and outs of things, and network like Izzy said, but network on a mutual level because these people are not stupid. They know that you're using them. And the other thing I would say is this: this is a heartbreaking, heartbreaking industry. You will feel triumphant 1 minute and kicked in the teeth the next. It's easy to feel great and feel confident when things are going right. When they go wrong, and they will, you better keep your chin up, your chest out, and on your frickin' feet because no one's picking your ass up but you. You stay strong, you stay positive, and you believe in yourself. And when pitfalls come, you learn from them. And when you see people doing things that you wish you could do, don't you ever waste a moment on jealousy. Jealousy is your enemy. You take that energy and you channel it into focus and motivation. I'm not going to be jealous of what somebody else is doing. I'm going to look at what are they doing to get there and learn.
Mhm.
Learn. Life is geology, time and pressure. If you give anything the amount of time it needs and the right amount of pressure, water erodes rock. And if a waterfall can erode rock, you can break through in the industry with time and pressure. But set realistic goals, believe in yourself. But believing in yourself doesn't mean turning a blind eye to what you're deficient at.
Mhm.
That's arrogance and stupidity.
Yeah, stop defending your work
Yes,
sometimes.
if you go to an editor and they rip you up, don't you dare make excuses or oh they don't
Mhm.
know what they're talking about. Really? Because they're the editor and you're begging them to like your stuff. Cut the crap. Put your ego away.
Yeah,
And the
this
last
is a place not for that. You can't have an ego here.
and the
Yeah,
last
no.
thing, this is a big word of advice that I'm still trying to fix. I am talking from experience. Haters are going to come. People are going to come after you. When you're trying to do well and you're trying to succeed, malicious, bad intent will come your way. Do not give them a voice. Ignore them and move on. I am guilty of giving into it. I am speaking from my fault. Ignore those people. Their energy is to bring you down because they don't like that you're succeeding. The more haters you get, the more you're doing something right. Ignore them. Don't defend yourself to anybody. You just keep being you and do what you got to do. But do it with integrity, guys. And do it with the intent that the rising tide raises all ships. There's no reason why I can't promote tragedy and build myself up and help Christopher and Izzy if I can at the same time. And if they have the same philosophy, three are stronger than one.
Mhm.
Agree.
The word unity is in community.
Mhm.
Come on, guys.
See,
Stop
right now, if he
fighting.
was in a room, everybody be standing up, clapping, like
An 80s movie.
It's the truth. But
on the
seriously,
slow
no.
clap, right?
Yeah.
Learn, know what your goals are, be realistic about them, be realistic about your station in life, and learn what you need to learn and never stop learning. You know, people tell me all these wonderful things about what I'm doing, and I greatly appreciate that support, but I'm nowhere until I'm not working a day job anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're a writer, read stuff and see what they did with their story. If you're an artist, look at the art, but don't look at it from a look at it with a fine scope, right? Look at it with a magnifying glass. How did they get your eye from one point to another? Look at sequentials. Look at what's happening between the panels. That's the stuff that I tell people as artists is like, you have some great art styles, but that's all it is. It's not, again,
Comics is
indie guys have
storytelling.
it's
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's storytelling. You have to be able to tell a story. So watch movies, watch a good
There are
TV
tons of
series.
YouTube tutorials. There's tons of professionals giving lessons and classes. Instead of investing your money in a book that is subpar, invest that money into classes so that you can get the knowledge, the wisdom, and the experience to make a professional book.
Yeah.
Right.
And here's a cheap plug for someone that helped me out. I did not become what I became before this if it wasn't for Andy Schmidt's comic experience. And the reason why it wasn't a class to teach me anything about drawing. They didn't teach me jack about drawing. What they did taught me about is how to tell a story properly. What it
Right.
did was got me to do work and then do more work and then continue to do work in a consistent basis. And more importantly, again, that we never critiqued each other's artwork. We always critiqued what was being told on the page and was it
Right.
able to tell a story.
Well,
That's
art
what
is
you want to be able to
subjective.
do.
Art
Yeah,
is subjective.
I want
Storytelling is not.
yeah.
yeah.
And to add to
With
I
art,
actually
with
got
art.
I actually got to get ready to get off here, but I do want to add one last thing to that is take risk. Be, you know what I'm saying? I mean, if try new stuff out. Don't, I mean,
Don't be
of course,
afraid.
no, there's industry standards on things, but at the end of the day, we need new stuff. Even if people tell you that it's weird, it doesn't work out, stick, saying have your own voice.
Be fresh.
Make your own, yeah. So that's the only. I mean, there's a lot of things that we love now that when it first came out, it
Tom
was not well received.
spaghetti webbing was laughed at, and having his knee behind his head. They're like, nobody moves like that. Now everybody emulates it. Damn right.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
be a trendsetter, be a leader.
Exactly. I remember a Taxi Driver. People walked out on the Cannes Film Festival when the movie came out and booed it. Taxi Driver. So.
Well, before you go, Chris, do your plug, please. And I'm going to tell everybody right now, you need to pay attention to Flash Delirium. I'm very serious about this. I didn't know Chris before I read his stuff, really. I'm being very serious about this. Rabbit's Badass Song is a professional level book. It is a great read. It is entertaining, and it's everything the indie community should be in a comic book. And I'm very serious about that. Go check out Rabbit's Badass Song. Go ahead, bud.
Yeah, well, there's a few things you can check us out on our Instagram, /Delirium_LLC. We do have a website. We're building it up now more. We had an old one, but that one got closed. But the new one is rabbitsbadasssong.com. Issues 1 and 2 is available on there. And we're gonna next year to be some new stuff coming. I'll have some more announcements that'll be on my social media. My Facebook is Elston Christopher, and I just told you the IG. But we got, aside from Rabbit, we got some totally different, brand new material we're gonna drop, and not necessarily just comic book stuff. So that's all I got.
Very cool, and God bless you and your new baby boy, Bowie.
Thanks, guys.
And I'm wishing you the success, man, that you deserve. I'm rooting for you. They work hard. Him and Chastity work very hard. And sometimes working hard is not enough, but they work hard and they have quality products, storytelling, etc. So, guys, go support Flash Delirium. Elston Christopher on Facebook. It's good having you on, man. Say hi, Chastity, and give that baby a little hug for me.
Will do. Hi, you guys.
Very good. Izzy, go ahead and plug everything you got going on, buddy.
Oh, there's so much, right? But keep it simple. Like, you can find me anywhere on Izzyverse NYC, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, more importantly, YouTube, where we talk about comics. We don't just talk about comics, we talk about wrestling, we talk about movies from a different type of perspective, from a comic book artist perspective. I'm an artist who loves this stuff, and I want to share it. That's why it's called the Izzyverse. It's a multiverse of geek culture products. I'm going to be at Super Jersey Expo this Saturday. If you're out there in Holmdel, New Jersey, go out there. That's where I'm going to be. I'm going to be giving away stuff because I love to give away stuff, as Phil knows. I'm always giving away some good things out there. Yep. And there's many more shows to come in the upcoming year. You can see them all in IG. Yeah, you can get commissions. Thanks a lot, man. I don't even promote my art as much as I used to, because I rather promote the other guys that are usually with me. So, like Nate Melendez, Enoch Ezel. That was his first big show, Phil.
Dude, I really got a good vibe off Enoch.
Enoch's such a good kid, man. He's a great kid, man.
I mean, he's not a kid. He's a 26-year-old man, but to me, he's a kid. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, same here.
I don't mean that in a condescending way, but he's a good guy, and so is Nate.
And so is Nate. In Enoch's case, I will say, he's a very humble guy, which is you don't get to see that much.
He's got a good innocent energy to him. I like that guy.
So he's a good guy. So Enoch Ezel, go look at his artwork. It is amazing. It's same thing with Nate Melendez. Nate Watt, he's been doing it for several years now, and his art. He'll be doing a cover for me. Yeah, his artwork is equally as great. And another guy I want to plug is Sean Hill, who unfortunately couldn't have been with us in Baltimore. In a weird way, it worked in our benefit, but he couldn't be with us because he was sick. He'll be with me on Saturday in the show. And another good guy, man. Another great guy. My whole point is to help other people grow. I've been there, done that. The way I look at it. But I want to help others get to that level. But I want to make sure the right people are out there.
Very cool. So go subscribe and click that bell on Izzyverse NYC's YouTube channel, and go check him out in Jersey this Saturday. Like I said, he gives away a lot of free stuff. He's fun to just hang out and talk with. Izzy's a very personable guy.
You can't offend me. It's extremely hard to offend me, even though Phil tries.
Ah, and, and you can even just go shoot the breeze about nerd culture with Izzy, and you'll have
Yeah.
a blast. So
Yeah.
go check him out at the show. Izzy, when you leave, go ahead and drop your links in the comments. Okay.
Cool, man. I'll talk to you then, man. Thanks for everything. I really appreciate it.
Be good.
You too, man.
So before I go, I know it's been a longer show than we expected. A couple of things I just want to announce. Filbo Publishing is growing. I have titles coming out. I'm going to have a Kickstarter every month through May. I am grinding. I'm hustling. I'm doing my best to get out there. I by no means gave any information today as if I'm the know all be all, or my information is your saving grace. Just sharing opinions, thoughts, ideas. We appreciate you coming out and hanging with us. Before we go, I do have a Kickstarter launching tonight at 8 p.m. And the thing about this Kickstarter is it's not mine, really. It is and it isn't. I'm an artist rep of several artists that are really amazing talent, trying to grow their name and get out there. And we're doing an art book Kickstarter. So if you wouldn't mind, just stick around a minute. I want to show you the Kickstarter because these guys deserve your attention. All right. It's not even about me, it's about them. They're a great group of people. They're really loyal and they're good, good people. So there are 7 art books. I'm going to show this trailer real fast. Please do not leave. Just hang out for a minute. We are launching tonight at 8 p.m. We're going to go live at 7:45 with artists as guests. And I'm just going to really quick go through this and then one other quick Kickstarter I got going in December. Now, I'm very serious when I say this. I've been repping for just a couple of years now, and unfortunately, sometimes you run into people in the industry that are a disappointment. I have a group of guys that I work with that we've formed a family, a bond, loyalty, friendship, and we work hard for each other. So if there's any Kickstarter, a group of people that are really worth your time and your investment between their talent level and the quality of their personalities, these guys are awesome. So I would ask you to please check out this Kickstarter tonight. It launches at 8 p.m. and we will have all of the art books, but we will also have original art tiers, so you can get original art commissioned from any of these gentlemen, and they are worth it. They are good people and they are very talented artists. And here are some samples of their art that you can see. Um, and I cannot say enough about them. So please come on out, check this out. If you, I'm going to post the link again. If you could click to be notified. I mean, look at that. You know, Quality people, quality artists. Please come check it out. We we'd love to see you. And we've got stretch goals to unlock if you guys come out and you back. All right, they're trying to live their dream like everybody else, so please support that. I want to just stick with me another 2 minutes. I want to show you one last thing, if you wouldn't mind, and this is near and dear to my heart. This is the very first prose book I've ever written, and it was a very cathartic process to write this. I had just turned 50 a few weeks ago, and you kind of tend to start looking back at your life and say, why was it so hard, or why do things go the way they do, or why would God allow this, or why are people like that? And I started coming up with these interesting, fictional, mind you, ways to explain those things. Some science fictiony, some fantasy, and some, maybe that's the reason. And I wrote this book that is theological fiction. I am not here to insult anyone who reads the Bible and is religious. It's not rewriting the Bible at all. It's not disrespectful in any way. And I'm not, if you're atheist, this is not a preachy book that tells you need to believe in God. It's not that. They are stories. They are fantasy, science fiction based on theology and theological beings. Okay. So what I would say is, if you wouldn't mind, click the link to share this, to be notified. It's called The Devil is in the Details. And there are 7 short stories in this book with a beautifully painted cover by Will Pladen, who I have the great privilege and honor of not only being his art rep, but his friend. Okay, and J.M. DeSantis is the editor, and he's got his own stuff going on. You should check him out. He's awesome as well. And I give you a little synopsis of each story, and then I give you on the page the first several pages of the first story, Withered, which is going to become a comic book series starting in March, issue 1, illustrated by Will Pladen. And I think this might be inspiring for people, or just downright just interesting and fun. The beta reading has taken place, and everyone's giving it good reviews. I haven't finished the page yet, just so you know, but I'm showing you. This is launching in December. It's called The Devil is in the Details. And it's just basically, have you ever had your faith and spirituality shaken? Has your life had you questioning how and why bad people exist, why we slave at jobs we hate, or why bad things happen? Do you look inward at what motivates you to keep moving forward despite the hardships of life? These 7 short tales explore the many possible reasons and motivations for questioning faith in an interesting and fictitious way. You don't need to be religious to enjoy these tales that are intended to inspire. We may not have all the answers, but these stories make you think about possibilities many never consider. This is not me trying to change the world or tell you what to believe. It was just me kind of just going through what was going through me and putting it out on paper. And I would love for you to check it out. It's 86 pages. It's going to be a $12 book physically and $10 as an ebook. So if you please could take a chance and put your faith in me, pun intended, that you won't have wasted your money on this Kickstarter, I would be grateful. Okay? That's starting in December, but tonight we launch Legendary Illustrations art book. So if you love art and you want to support artists, that would be the place to go tonight. We're going to do a live stream launch. We start at 7:45 and we will launch live at 8. Please help us have a strong launch for the artist's sake, for their sake, because the money goes to them. I do get my percentage as an agent and doing the work, but it really goes to them and supports their dream. We appreciate everybody that comes to shows and buys from us. We appreciate everyone that shares, says a kind word, hits a like button, supports, comes out and watches my long-winded shows. It is greatly appreciated, more than you would know. And as I am 50 years old, I work harder than I've ever worked in my life, and I really grind, and I'm trying the best I can. And I really try to put out quality content. So I would ask you to follow Philbo Publishing as we're trying to make strides this year. We have a website that's going to be constructed, etc. What started as me almost dying from COVID became me writing tragedy to me writing several other titles and having a publishing company. And I'm hoping that I could put out content that reaches you on some human way, characters you can relate to, stories that can entertain you. All right. Thank you so much to all of you for coming out and hanging out and chatting with us. We appreciate you. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you tonight at 7:45 p.m. when we go live with the crew, legendary crew. Okay. I'm going to leave you with what I always leave you with. But before I do, I want to sincerely wish you all happiness, health, and success in everything you do because I know how life can get very hard. Don't let it knock you down. And if it does, get up. Be legendary and have fun storming